So I'm very much excited about the word strategy. I'm very much excited about the word design. And now every business that exists wants to grow. Every business that exists wants to be better in some form, shape. So today we'll be looking at that to say that, okay, we talk about growth strategy. We talk about, is your growth strategy agile? And then we'll be discussing through some frameworks. Yeah, we'll be discussing through some frameworks that we could use in the place of making sure that we are designing agile growth strategies. So without further ado, looking at the learning outcomes, what we expect to go through today, we need to go through business agility, growth mindset, design thinking, look at some practical case studies around business agility, and then identify some major agile methodologies. So now coronavirus, for instance, is not a new thing to anyone really. We can see, and as much as it's having its effects on human beings, their health, I mean, the loss of some lives. I mean, some good news around that is that at least over 50% of people who have contracted coronavirus have recovered globally. However, this is having a serious effect on business because beyond the health effects it has on the people, it creates some more scare. You can see it saying that for Apple alone, the effect of coronavirus is almost shaving off $34 billion of their stock markets. Car sales is reducing in China, and even airlines, they are suffering it seriously. A regional airline in UK, for instance, just went into administration this morning. It's called Flybe. So these are situations. I mean, the next slide explains what we're trying to talk about in all of this now, to say that really a lot of times, even though Mike Tyson was saying this in the context of boxing, but looking at it in the context of business as well too, a lot of time businesses have their plans, businesses have their strategy, but then they get met with unforeseen circumstances, like the case of coronavirus, right? And they don't even know where to run. They don't even know what to do next. And a lot of businesses just go to the cost-cutting measure and think, well, when things are bad, the best we can do is just to stay afloat. But sometimes when things are bad with the team, there are ways, there are strategies that the business might be able to evolve itself through such a situation. And that is some of the things we'll be talking about as we make progress. So now, looking at the topic, designing an agile growth strategy, this 4 keywords stands out for us here: design, agile, growth, strategy. So, man, the key thing here is growth. And what is design then? Because a lot of times we think about it, when you say design, what comes to mind to a lot of people is maybe graphics design, UX design. Yes, that's right. But in that same context as well, too, you could design just about anything. It's just that deliberate and concentrated efforts towards a particular goal to say, yeah, we want to do this. We're not just creating it, we are designing it. So you could actually design your strategy. And agile is pretty much very popular to a lot of people, even though it's more popular than it's in practice in reality. And you have a lot of organizations that say, oh, we are agile, but in the real sense of it, the organization is not truly really agile. And strategy here, sometimes some of us might look at the word strategy and say, hey, this is something that is just for business school, people who graduate from business school and have their MBAs and top tier institutions and the likes. But honestly, it's absolutely not so. I was reading of recent about a research on the top 500 companies in the US, and realized that only a third of the CEOs of top 500 companies went to graduate school. I mean, have an MBA, and even much fewer than that, less than half of that 1/3, are the ones who even attend Ivy League institutions. So strategy is not something that is just so big that you could put a group of teams together and they could come out with a strategy that would work in hours. And sometimes they might need days to come up with a strategy that will work, depending on what you are designing your strategy for, because strategy is not just about growth. But today we are looking at strategy in the context of growth. So we're looking at how do you design an agile growth strategy. But before we move on from here, we just want to take a poll from everyone and just get some feedback from people based on based on our level of understanding in some of all this topic, or based on our experience with what we do, just to get a quick feel of the audience here tonight.
So let's start with the poll. There is a first question. So you can poll for this. I'm sharing the results.
Okay. Okay, this is very good response. Okay, so we can make progress from now, having gotten a feel from the audience, what their understanding and level of experience with work around these things are. So the explanation going forward can be more tailored to that. So
can we move to another one?
Yeah, no, let's take a pause on the poll now,
okay,
and then
okay.
we'll continue with slides, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, do I have the... Okay, so now looking at growth strategies. So growth strategies can be broadly, you can decide to break it down even much more than this, but more broadly speaking, any growth strategy that you're trying to come up with for your business, it's more either as a product development or market development or market penetration or diversification. So a lot of time in the IT space, most of the look of things when you're trying to grow the business is always looked at in the direction of product development, to say, oh, if we're going to grow the business, then we need to either make the product better or to develop new products or things like that. But bearing in mind that I'm assuming that we'll have audience in IT, outside IT, in software, in all across different forms of businesses. So here, looking at product development strategy, I've made an example here to say that your way of developing a different product might be, okay, you sell shoes, you make and sell shoes. After a while, you realize to say, okay, let's develop another product. Then you start making and selling clothes as well too. So, and then take that outside, look at it in terms of, take that outside just retail and look around IT, for instance. You may be developing an e-commerce software, and after a while you think to be able to gain more markets, get more audience, you might want to grow in and also start developing a payment system as well. So for instance, that's how PayPal came to be. It was initially a site to sell things. They initially had a site selling things, and they came up with PayPal to help people pay. And they realized that the PayPal business was even growing more. Then there was a reconcentration of efforts in that direction. So in whatever business you are, however that means to you, to develop another product, maybe as a complementary product to what you currently have, or a new one that will help you get more markets. So market development strategy here is like, without having to necessarily change your product, you're trying to move things around in a way that you can get more, you can get into more markets. It's like you're getting into a different market segment. So Spotify, for instance, so it's a music streaming service. Most music streaming services, you pay for it, and Spotify can say, we have a freemium one, so you don't have to pay, you just stream it, and then we play adverts to you. So that way, they're able to penetrate a market that will never have paid for the service. If all they do is the paid subscription, the people who do the free ones and listen to the adverts will never pay for it. So, but they can still generate value from those ones because they can make some money from the adverts there. So whatever the business really is, you're in a real estate business, for instance, you only build and sell houses. If you're going to grow the business, after a while, you might start even considering, okay, what about renting as a mix as well, to just be able to make sure that you're able to get into different market segments. And market penetration here, you're looking at the same audience, you're looking at the same markets, but you're looking to sell deeper to the same people. So that is where things that is much more common to us to say, hey, let's do a lot of advertising, or let's do a lot of reward for a word of mouth adverts, like paying for referrals and things like that. So you're just penetrating the same market. You're not tweaking your products, but you're getting into the same market more deeper, whatever you need to do, or through bundling, for instance, where Amazon Prime did something like that, where now you have Prime delivery, but to be able to get more people to subscribe for that, they added more services on that and say, oh, if you pay for Prime delivery, we will give you if you pay for Prime delivery, we'll give you access to our Prime Video, we'll give you access to Amazon Music and things like that. So if even if not for the core product that it's been sold, the extras might not be the encouragement for more people to buy. And you see that happening a lot sometimes in training as well. So you attend a session and they say, oh, if you buy this training course, we'll also give you this and this and this. So those extra things sometimes get to convince more people. You're able to penetrate into your market. So then diversification strategy. Sometimes you've done everything and just realized, oh, the only way to grow here is to maybe get a new product and also appeal to new markets. Because if you're having a new product, it's like you're looking to a new market as well. So these are pretty much framework in guiding how you go about coming up with whatever your strategy is that you want to grow your business and get more users or get more customers and the like. So now the question here is, how do you know which strategy to adopt per time? So thinking through this, how do you really know that, oh, right now it's for us to do this, or right now it's for us to do that per time? So, and there are different ways that a lot of organizations go about this. Sometimes some organizations just guess. We have a lot of organizations today that it's still a top-bottom approach. All the decisions still comes from senior management and say, this is what we have to do, and everybody just goes ahead to do it. And a lot of times it just doesn't work like that, because there are a lot of ideas that is locked up in the people. There are a lot of ideas that is locked up in the team that you're working with. There are a lot of insights you can get from your users, that you can get from your customers. So in coming up with this decision around, oh, this is the strategy that works for us per time, the ability to be able to get that decision, we'll be going through a number of things that would pretty much help us to say, oh, okay, now using this tool or using this framework would guide our decision to know that this strategy is what we need to focus on our business at this particular time. So quickly, I just make this summary here, that in making your decision, one of the things that really needs to be in place for you is, like, you have collaborative teams. So it's not just a top-bottom approach. You have teams working together who are able to influence how what the best strategy will be. Sometimes it's not about, because we have a marketing team, the marketing team just decides what needs to happen. But collaborative team here is that every teams are working together. Someone from marketing is collaborating well with someone in software development. You're collaborating well with in finance, and so that shared knowledge is able to help people come out with the best decision per time. And we'll be talking about that in some of the way of being agile, or some of the agile frameworks. It's about not just having teams and silos, but having cross-functional teams. The age has passed where you just have, this is the area where we have all our finance team, or this is the area where we have all this or all that. But you need to be able to pull teams together from different functions to work together towards a certain goal. You want to grow the business. I want to grow from X to Y, or we want to grow from this level of revenue to this level of revenue, or we want to grow from this level of number of users or the size of our customers to this extent. Don't just say, oh, marketing, think about it. That's not how it works anymore today. It has to be, what exactly is your business? Who are the people working in the core, the product itself? Are you making shoes? Who are the guys making the shoes? Pull someone from there. Guys from marketing, pull someone from finance, or the different teams that you have, HR. People collaboratively work together and come out with the multiple ideas that we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. But one thing that is very important is that when you're pulling together your team, there needs to be that clear goal. There needs to be a clear problem that we're really working towards, because growth means different things to different people. Like, you must have heard me say that, are you trying to grow your revenue base, grow the number of your users? Growth might even mean, okay, whatever, to different people. We would also have a poll at some point. I think this is even the good time to get that poll out. We have the next poll that is asking us about definition of what growth means to different people. Can we have that poll now?
Sure. Sure. I'm sharing the poll. So now we can look for a result.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yes. And interesting, a large percentage of people say, yes, we have a growth strategy and it guides our action to what we do. And there are people who say there is none, because we're just doing business. We don't even know what it is. And that's addressed the points that I'm talking about in place of the collaborative team. When you pull teams together, if there is no clarity on what the strategy, if there's no clarity on what the strategy is, what exactly they want to work towards, what is the aim of this growth? What are we trying to grow really? The team might come together and they won't have any results. So, okay. So back to the slide here. You need to have a collaborative team, but it's very important that the team knows what exactly you're trying to grow. Like we asked earlier, what growth means to different people, and some people just look at it as a framework, and some people look at it as, oh, this is what we are really trying to grow. And when you have your different teams, they come out with multiple ideas. Like get as much ideas as possible. In the process of coming out with what we need to do, it's very important that you're not shooting anything down. Yeah, multiple ideas, gather as much as possible, because sometimes I know it's popular to say that quantity does not equal quality, but the more quantity you have, you increase the probability of getting the best quality as well. So gather as much ideas as possible. Then your team working collaboratively together and in a safe environment, they can trim that down and to a selected few. And whatever the selected few is, you have to test those ideas, and then you have to get a timely execution. And in the middle of all this, one underlining thing is that you have to be agile, because don't just do agile, be agile. That's one major thing that is very important to emphasize. A lot of organizations say, oh, we are doing agile. We're doing this agile methodology called Scrum. But if you follow a methodology, if you follow a framework, if the people are not truly agile, because it's first about the mindset, many of all those things would fall apart, because some people will look at something and say, oh, we can't really do this. This is far for us. And then some people will just make a decision and they'll stick to it, and they don't want to test that idea. And in all of this, we'll be talking through how do you really come up with these ideas, and how do you test these ideas as well too. Am I able to? Yeah. So in talking about the agile mindset, I know a quick backstory on agile to say that, okay, I think this is about 20 years ago, a group of software developers came together to say, oh, the way we develop software is not really working. We need to do something better around it. So they came up with something called the Agile Manifesto. And the Agile Manifesto, to a very good extent, defined what the basic values are, to say, oh, we are favoring individual interactions over processes or tools. We need to be able to respond to change. We need to be able to collaborate with our customers, and we need to be able to provide a working product as frequent as possible. But in looking at those manifesto, which defines the baseline for what the values are, we could say here that what is very essential as for an agile mindset is also what is referred to as growth mindset. So there's this book that talks about fixed mindsets and growth mindset. Well, really getting the people to have a growth mindset is something that is very, very essential. Because when we said earlier about having your teams to be collaborative, if they don't have a growth mindset that believes that even if we come up with an idea and that idea fails, what we need to focus is learning from that failure and evolving ourselves through it. But if those people have a fixed mindset, if they try out a new idea and it doesn't work, they just feel that, oh, they are not good enough. So they don't want to bother trying anything again. Or if you come up with an idea and it requires a lot of learning to be able to make it happen. Some teams just feel, well, I'm not good at that, so I'm not even just going to bother myself at all. Like I don't want to stress out. Whereas people with a growth mindset, they want to take that challenge. They want to grow. They want to get feedback and say, okay, as frequent as possible, how can we make this better here and there? So it's not someone who makes an effort and it doesn't work and they just feel they're frustrated or they want to give up. They're not going to try that again. People with growth mindset, they always want to try new things. And this is very, very fundamental to the agile mindset. You need to be willing to try new things because you keep knowing better every day. So what you think was the best idea yesterday might not be the best idea again in 1 month. So, and that's why you see with your Windows laptop, for instance, you almost every other week, you said you need to update your Windows. You need to update your Windows. Sometimes some people might feel that, well, that's frustrating, but it's for the ultimate good of the customer, yeah? Because this is making sure that you're improving security and delivering new things as frequent as possible. So it's not just, we've done this product and that is it. So whatever business that you might be in, one thing that is very essential is that you are always willing to try new things. You wake up every day, you get to work every day, and the question before you is, how can we do better? How can we do better? So it's very essential that the people that you are bringing together have a growth mindset. So that is why when we're saying defining a growth strategy, it's not independent of everything that is happening across the organization. It starts from the very day you employ a new person. If the new person you've employed is having a fixed mindset, it's almost difficult for you to get an agile growth strategy, because that might be the person that will be shooting down all the good ideas or just be saying all the things that are impossible. But when you have a team of people that have the growth mindset, they're able to work collaboratively and try new things and learn and get feedback and keep getting better over and over. So, looking quickly at the Agile methodologies. Now, having established the fact that Agile is first about the mindset that you approach things with, then some people, oh yeah, I have the Agile mindset now, I believe we can do it. How do we go about it in being Agile now? So these are methodologies which I even sometimes prefer to just see them as frameworks, because they are not fixed rules to say you must do this way, you must do that way. A lot of them prescribe what you should do, how you should do it, because it's supposed to be a guide for everyone in doing your work. And these are things that have been tried and tested by many organizations. It's worked, it's produced good results. So it's like, instead of you sitting down to think, to say, how are we going to work together? How am I going to make my team collaboratively? And having to figure that out all by yourself. These methodologies already establish some rules here and there that can provide that guidance for you. So the first one here, being Scrum, is like being the most popular. Fundamentally, Scrum just explains that when you're pulling teams together, you shouldn't have more than 11. You shouldn't have more than 11. There's even this popular thing that's kind of like corroborates that, the validity of that. Jeff Bezos said one time that any team that is larger, any team that you cannot feed with 2 pizzas is too big. So it's like, it's now like a thing in business now when you say the 2 pizza rule. If your team is bigger than what can be, where you can share 2 pizzas with, feed with 2 pizzas, then that team is too large. So where Scrum is establishing to say, don't have more than 11 people in a collaborative team working together towards a goal. Now, this is not saying that, oh, that means every organization, your finance must not be more than 11 or something. So that's not necessarily what it implies. A quick example on Microsoft, for instance, so they could have a product, they have a lot of engineering team. So instead of just having a team of 400, 500 people working towards one product and one person leading 200 people, which is almost impossible anyway. So that team of 400 can now be divided into smaller size team. And Scrum is saying each team should not be more than 11. So each of them have a focus on what they are working on. And then your whatever you're delivering as well, so you deliver iteratively. That means you deliver in sprints. You deliver in so you set a target to say either in the next 1 week, in the next 2 weeks, or in the next 1 month, this and this is what we need to achieve. So those team works towards that. And then you have a sprint planning. You during the sprint, you have a daily Scrum, a 15-minute meeting, which is the part of Scrum that a lot of people do. And they say we are doing Scrum. So if you're just doing your 15 minutes meeting every day just to catch up on where everybody is, if you don't have a defined goal at the beginning of a sprint, and have a time when the sprint is closing and review what you've delivered, then you are not doing Scrum. So those things are very essential. So I'm just running through this. Now, if you want to learn about Scrum, for instance, this is like a full 2-3 day course. So you even understand in detail how to do implement Scrum. Kanban is another one. Kanban, which is a bit more direct to say that, okay, you have your team, but the main thing in Kanban is limit your work in progress. So this icon here is showing like 3 columns. The first column is like your to-do task. The second one is your in progress. And the third one is you're done. So what Kanban really says is, because a lot of times people get slowed down because there's a lot of things everybody is working on at the same time. When you group your team, you have all the things you need to do, but focus on very little work per time. Start and finish before you start doing something else. So that's the main thing that Kanban is about, to make sure that work keeps flowing and you're not having everything in progress and nothing is being completed. So if you're even working and then you're coming up with a growth strategy and you need to do some research in the process or something. So if you've listed all the different research you need to do, for instance, you don't just open all the research and start doing everything. If you want to use a Kanban methodology in guiding your work efforts, you have to make sure we're only doing a few things per time. So then we have others like Scaled Agile Framework. Less means large scale Scrum. Then we have Scrum at Scale, and then Disciplined Agile. Many of these are looking at how you can take Agile beyond just a team, how you can scale Agile across the entire organization. So Scaled Agile Framework, for instance, have a mix of Kanban at some level and Scrum at some level, just to make sure that even if you have an organization of 5,000 people, how do those different teams do practice Agile and remain collaboratively connected together, is what Scaled Agile Framework is explaining, and the rest of it. So, okay, so now I want to look at some case studies in organizations that have been Agile. And rather than just use the word Agile there, I would introduce business agility. So because sometimes when you hear Agile, a lot of people just think, oh, Agile is a software thing. But I'm happy to see the response that came from the audience today, showing that pretty much it's something that can be scaled across the entire organization. So the whole terminology business agility is trying to really bring that awareness that it's not just about an Agile methodology or an Agile this or an Agile that, but it's more about the business being Agile in all they do. So being Agile in all they do. So business agility is saying, how can we make sure that Agile permeates everything that we do across the organization? So I'm looking at some case study to look at organizations that have allowed Agile to permeate what they do. So looking at Hire, this is an appliance company. And there was a time when GE Appliances reached out to them to buy them, and Hire wasn't doing so well at that point, but they refused to be bought. And the interesting thing about the story is that then this forced them, they looked inwards. Why are we not growing? In their own case, they realized that they were not growing because their products were substandard. Because when you buy a product from someone and the product is not good enough, you're not likely going to tell somebody else to buy that product. You're not going to buy that product again if you need anything. And the leadership of the organization was able to come down with the guys in the factory what you're really working on and get them to destroy all the substandard products and get to the point to say, now we need to do better in developing our product. So what do they do here? If you go back to the slide where we're talking about your different strategy, at this point, they are focused on their products because they realize that the problem is the product. So that is where you fix the problem. Because if you say we want to grow, sometimes some people don't pay attention to find first what the problem is. They just say, oh, we just want to grow. Let's pour a lot of money into advertising. And they keep advertising and advertising, and the business keeps going down, down, down. Because when you're designing a strategy, your first thing is to understand what the problem you're trying to solve is. Because the strategy is supposed to be a solution to something. And before you start coming up with a solution, you must first understand the problem. You need to invest a lot of time with your team to understand the problem. If you don't understand the problem, don't start designing any solution. So before you come and say, oh, we are not growing, don't just say, we are not growing, let's do this. We are not growing. Why are we not growing? It's very essential to find that first before you can now make the changes that are very essential. LinkedIn, for instance, there was a time there was like, oh, we are not growing. Then what is the problem? Why are we not growing? Then they realize that because the people don't have a lot of engagement on LinkedIn. So what do? They tweaked their product a little such that each time a new person signs up on LinkedIn, one of the questions they ask there is, where have you worked? So by the time you put information of where you worked, they immediately bring suggestion of people that you probably know for you. And today, many of us, if you're on LinkedIn, you see that a lot. a lot of suggestions of people that you might know. You see that on Facebook as well too, because they realize that we need to drive engagement to get more people to come on. So Hire in this case realized that it's their product. They destroyed it and they said, okay, how can we make sure that we don't develop standard products? Again, two things that was very important for them is to have an open innovation culture and to have zero distance to consumer. So what open innovation culture there is referring to is the fact that they are open to get ideas from everywhere across the team. Remember the point we mentioned earlier to say you need to work across the collaborative teams and you need to be able to generate multiple ideas. There is no idea that is nonsense, because the truth is the crazy, the silly ideas sometimes is the one that somebody else will pick and reframe and is going to produce the results that will work for you. So open innovation, getting ideas from all across the business, and zero distance to consumer. Now you're designing products for people, you need to have a way to get feedback from them. That is something that if we observe today, a lot of organizations are paying attention to. How can we get the contact of our consumer, even when there is no reason for it, so to say, because it's when you buy, when you shop online, that's when you get to register and provide your details. And then you see a lot of people want to give you reason to say, oh, join this, subscribe to our newsletter, we'll give you this discount, just because they want to be able to get the contact of their consumer. And some business has even taken it even further than that. We have a business like Monzo Bank in the UK, is a digital only bank, and the board, the project management tool that they are using to manage all the features that they are developing on the product is open on their website. So as a customer, you can go there and see the new features that Monzo is developing, and you can go there to vote the ones you want them to work on. So if you're developing a product that you want more people to buy, you also want to get their buying first. So that's one thing that Hire did, and it really worked for them. And beyond that as well too, they made efforts to drive entrepreneurial self-management, to say, how can we make sure that we're not just micromanaging people, take away middle management, get people to be able to manage themselves. A number of organizations have done this, and it's pretty much worked for them. The people set their own goals within their teams, know what they want to deliver, hold themselves accountable, and to the point where you now have different business units, each business unit operating like a business on its own. So all those changes that Hire make, which you can see as things around business agility, really helped them. They grew so well. They have now Hire. It's more like it's now operates more like a group of subsidiaries of little business, which are profit centers in their own right. So this worked so well for them to the point that years later, the whole thing turned around and they ended up buying General Electric. So Spotify. And Spotify, when they started, this is a mistake here. Spotify started in 2008 as an agile company. So they have their own strategy baked into their process and everything that they do. So their teams are independent. The teams are independent of themselves. The teams are able to make decisions, unlike what a lot of organizations do today, and they would have to pass it up and up, bureaucratic processes and getting things approved. They don't have that. You come up with a very beautiful idea in the team. They get to work on it. So one of the things that make the use of Spotify very addictive today is called Discover Weekly, where they curate a weekly list of playlists for you based on the songs that you've listened to over the past week. So it was an idea from a team, and they created it and they tested it with a few users, and it worked so well. A lot of people wanted it. It makes people listen more on Spotify. And that has really contributed to their growth. Today, Spotify has over 120 million active users. So, but if that team did not have that self-managing rights, if they would have to pass through a lot of decision, probably somebody else wouldn't have bought the idea then. But having business agility baked into the organization culture gets people to have that independence and interdependence and be able to come up with ideas and get to work on it and get very good results. So another case study here is Microsoft. Talked about this earlier. When they were even started their agile journey, it was one team out of 40 teams working on a particular product, which is now known as Azure DevOps. And as they begin to see that the result is working, it scaled gradually across different teams until when a new CA came up in 2011 and said, hey, encouraged all of the engineering team to adopt Agile and the way that they work. And this success is evident in one of their tools called Azure DevOps. I use that tool for work, and they keep expanding on that tool, making it better. Sometimes I log into the tool and I'm thinking, oh, this would be a good feature to have or something. And before you know it, weeks later, it's already there. And beyond just that as well, so they have a way for you to provide suggestions of, say, this is what I want on this product. So people contribute their ideas on the forums and all that, and they have teams looking through all this to be able to know what people want and develop that into them. Now, if you not have a way of listening to your customer to understand what they want you to bake into your product, you'll realize that somebody else, another business, would come up from somewhere and listen to the customer and deliver what needs to be delivered and move on. And now, being agile does not necessarily mean that, okay, once you come together, be agile and do things, everything you do will definitely get all the best results. Sometimes you'll make mistakes. Microsoft had their share of it. They came up with their Windows Phone. It wasn't successful, but in the spirit of being agile, they shut it down. If this is not working, there's no point forcing it anymore, because it will just continually be a loss center. So lest some people think that, okay, this has just been looking at only IT companies. So this is a case study of a tomato factory in the US. And this tomato factory started in 1970 as a trucking company initially. But today now, they make 40% of all the tomato paste ingredients in the US. So what has really contributed to their success is their devolution into self-management. They don't have what's it called? They don't have middle managers. There's an Harvard Business Review article written about them in 2011 that says fire all the middle managers. So, and it's working for them because a lot of people are forced to now live the life as though they would have in their home, because you make decision in your house, isn't it? You make decision of what to wear, you make decision of what to do. So you come to work as well. So unlike what happens, people don't have to come and just fold their hands and wait for instruction on what to do. People make decision by themselves. They look for areas of improvement within the business and do it. And the different business units as well. So as much as they collaborate together, they give that independence for people to work on. They have that independence for them to be able to identify what they need to do to be profit making, identify what they need to do to succeed, because sometimes applying the same rule across the entire business just doesn't work. Different people will need to, different segments of the business will need to have different approach. They will need to have different growth strategy for them to launch. But having that level of independence and interdependence will help businesses to be able to scale quickly. You see today how that startup companies scale very quickly, whereas you have some big established companies, it looks as if they are not really making the growth, and a young company is coming and taking over business for them. So it's because when organizations become too big sometimes, if they don't have a way to devolve the authority and spread it across the organization, if everything would have to go through layers and layers and layers, before you launch out with the product or before you launch out with that service, somebody else has offered it. And there is the place of the first mover advantage in business, because when someone moves first and delivers very good results on it, they just own the market. You have Samsung and iPhone owning the mobile phone market today. Huawei is coming out with very good products. Google is coming out with very good products, but it still don't own a very good percentage of that share. Why there? One of the advantages is first mover advantage, because those other ones are also almost as equally as good as the products you'll get from Samsung or iPhone. So there's that place of making sure that within your business, as you grow, as you scale, you try to give individuals across the organization authority to be able to come up with their own decision, get their own advice or their own ideas to be heard, because you'll be surprised sometimes the idea that a janitor has that could grow the business. But if you don't have that structure where everybody can be listened to and everybody can easily collaborate and come up with their beautiful ideas, a lot will be left on the table. So now, what can we learn from these companies that they've done? So quickly, these are just some things that I've just picked out here. That there are many things. If you look at that story, if you decide to research the story more, there are more things you could learn from those businesses as well. So but one of the very few ones I've picked out here is collaborating with your customers and suppliers. what's the company we looked at just now, which is the Morning Star tomato plant earlier, as they even begin to create new businesses, sometimes they set a new arm of their business in partnership with the tomato suppliers themselves to own a share in the business, because collaborating with your customers, collaborating with your suppliers, you're able to get information real time, you're able to give people what they want. And very importantly anyway, is that, when we talk about, and one of the points there is also looking at focus on and listening to your users. But listening to your users should not be misconstrued sometimes as just, oh, we've done a survey to capture feedback from people. But many times, the real truth you get about your users is by observing, not just listening to what they say, but listening to what they do. Because people say something else and they do something else. But the reality of who they are is what they do, how they live their lives. So that's when you're using a product. For instance, when Twitter came out with 280 characters, a lot of people were complaining and all that. But if you look at it today, a lot of people are benefiting from the fact that Twitter has moved from 140 to 280 characters. So people will sometimes shoot down, and people will have different opinions. Some people will say this, some people will say that. But when you observe what people do, what your users, how they interact with your product, you might be able to understand to say, okay, this is a better way to come up with this. You're in real estate business and you're selling houses. Okay, beyond just what people are saying concerning maybe the price points of the houses or the location of the houses, it's by observation. Which area are people moving towards? Which area are people gearing towards? When there is real estate of this price, how quickly do people buy it? When there's real estate of this other price, how quickly do people buy that as well too? So that gives a balanced view to make sure that you're not just doing things, but doing things that your users will prefer, because you observe what they are doing as well too. So frequent delivery of value is very essential. People's taste and people's desires and wants change very quickly today, because in the age of internet, where you can see new things coming up every now and then, you might just, oh, I love this before, oh, I don't love it again. I've seen another product that seems better than it. Or you've seen a particular TV 2 years ago, and today you have someone coming up with a very short throw projector that is giving you high quality pictures, almost better than they need for a TV. So if somebody is thinking, oh, we'll still focus the product we sold 2 years ago, let's keep just pushing that alone to the market, it's not going to work. Even cars, phones, everybody keep coming out with new products every year, because things are improving, and you need to be able to deliver the level of value or even better than what is out there as alternative if you must keep getting more customers. And also, very importantly, responding to change. Things change. People want this. At some point, 4G was the thing. Now 5G is becoming a thing. So if any phone wakes up today and say, oh, we are not going to respond to that, we're just going to stay the way we are, keep doing our 4G. After a while, even iPhone, as big as they are, if they don't respond to coming up with 5G in a few years down the line, they'll be off the market. You need to respond to change. That's one of the things that happened to Nokia. Nokia was there with their own OS. Every device was going around to Android, and people were accepting Android, and they feel that, well, if iPhone is doing what they are doing, they should be able to hold. But Nokia lost because they did not respond to change. So it's very essential that we respond to change, observing what's happening in the market. So now, in all this process or all this recommendation we've talked about around some of all those things that we've just recently observed that those people did, now responding to change and things like that, there's one of the framework that could guide our thinking is the design thinking process. And this is like, it's not just a one slide thing. This is something that you need to like spend more time to go through. We have a program which is for the Business Agility Foundation course. This is design thinking is one of the things we'll be able to take more deeper. This is a course that runs for about 20 hours. So we'll be able to pay more attention and look at this. What's your design thinking framework? How do you apply it to your business? In whatever business at all that it is. That the first thing is that you're empathizing with your customers. We've explained it earlier by observing your customers is empathy. What do they do? What do you think with the way they interact with your product will help them become better? Then you can define exactly where the problems exist. Now it's funny to think about it, to say that why should we be talking about problem? Problem always exists. problems always exist. So but sometimes we think problems is just a very big thing. No, problem is just the difference between, okay, this is where we want to be, but this is where we are right now. If we're not where we want to be, that's a problem, no matter how little that difference is. Oh, you want to earn more money. You're earning good money right now. You have a good job, but you want to earn more money. The problem is that you're not earning as much as you want to, even though you have a good job and you're happy with that one. But that's an example I'm just trying to make there. So when we say problem, we don't think, the problem must be that there is something missing or something. The problem might just be that there is something we can add. There's something we can do better. Then that's a problem you've identified. Also, by the time you get your problem, like I mentioned earlier, you come up with a lot of ideas. And when you have a lot of ideas, which is the ideas point there, then you move on to prototype. You don't just get an idea and build something big and ship it to the market. You come up with an idea, test it first by building something small. So you're building something small to be able to test it. You're in real estate, you want to build 1,000 houses. Before you start selling, you don't build all the 1,000 first. Sometimes you do your planning, your prototype for a real estate business might just be a brochure that shows how the houses would look like. And then you start engaging with people. Then you get feedback. If people start saying, no, we don't like 2 stories, we want 3 stories, or we want 1 story, you've only had a brochure. So it's easy. You can go back and change your plan if you've gotten more feedback of people preferring something over the other. But if you just break ground and build 1,000 houses at once, if you start getting feedback from people, you can't change that again. And even when you want to build 1,000 houses, you don't build everything at once. You don't lay foundation of 1,000 all at once. You start with 10, you finish that, capture feedback as well too from that 10. So that's where the place of testing is. It's continuous in whatever you do. You do a little, you test. If you get some feedback from it, you refine the next thing that you're implementing. You do the whole cycle again, you test, you refine, you do better in whatever it is. So I have the slide here talking about red ocean versus blue ocean strategy, mainly just to bring some form of caution, because sometimes when we are trying to grow a business, we don't just, we just feel, okay, this is what we're just gonna do. But this concept of red ocean strategy and blue ocean strategy, it's like a cautious step to say, okay, everybody is doing this, so we too, we want to do it. So let's just do something else. Let's just do the same thing that everybody is doing. It might not necessarily work. Like you see in the first point there, in a red ocean strategy, you want to compete in existing market space. Oh, everybody's already doing it, let's do it. But what will help you to grow faster sometimes is looking on the side of blue ocean strategy to say, okay, everybody's already doing this. Is there something that everybody is not yet doing that we can do? Or everybody's already doing this. Can we add something extra to what everyone is doing so that we can become better and then create a new market for ourselves, which is more like a way of you making the competition irrelevant. You are not competing with anybody. We are making the competition irrelevant. That's what, for instance, Apple has with their iPhone, for instance. You can't really say that any phone is a competition to Apple. Why? Because there is no other phone that has iOS apart from Apple. So they've done something, they've carved a niche for themselves that worked for them. But if they did the iOS and nobody was buying into it, after a number of years, they probably would have changed their plan into something else. But you need to be able to come with that. And you see new phones coming out and say, a lot of phones are out there, but Samsung now is saying, oh, we want to come out with the S20 Ultra, a phone with 108 megapixel, which is probably going to even make our digital cameras become irrelevant. So these are the things that should guide our thinking in coming up with new strategies for how to grow a business. You need to be able to create and capture new demand. And in doing that, it's not about seeing what others are doing, but you deliberately going out there to get your own feedback from your own customers in your own way, spending a lot of time observing them. And that is why data today is being seen as something very major, because a lot of business wants as much data as possible to understand their customers. You would have experienced it that if you do a research for something, before you know, everywhere you go online, you keep seeing adverts for that particular thing. You research for shoes, you watch a YouTube video, advert for shoes. You go on Facebook, advert, almost everywhere, advert for shoes, because the data, they keep observing as, okay, this is what this person is looking for now. So let's position to get that person at that point. Okay, so in wrapping up, like I mentioned earlier, we have this course called the Business Agility Foundation course, so which is offered by IC Agile. So IC Agile, there are several certification track that you could do, but in looking at business agility, which is like, okay, this is the foundational course for this. You have so many other certifications out there. If you look at the slide that I showed earlier, as well too, that talked about agile methodologies. Many of those different methodologies have different certifications as well too. But the essence of business agility here is saying we're not just looking at agile as a software thing or as an IT thing. We're looking at agile as how can you scale it across the business. So regardless of what methodology you want to implement, business agility is saying these are the things, these are the areas you need to be looking at. These are the areas you need to pay attention to be able to come up with your to be able to create that agile culture, to be able to say that, oh, okay, yeah, we can now say that our business is agile in all that we do. And quickly looking at those different domains and different areas that we need to pay attention to is broadly is the individuals, the operations, and leadership. Very importantly, sometimes organizations just say, oh, we're just going to make our people agile, or some people say we're just going to make our operations agile and leave the other part of it. If there is no cross flow of agility across every aspect of the business, there would be some teething issues. Some people who have worked in agile project management, for instance, and the IT team is agile, but the other teams across the organization is not agile, they face a lot of this. You're trying to do something, you're trying to deliver within a period of time, but they keep it's like a glass ceiling. They keep hitting their head and they can't make that progress. But business agility is saying if you're able to wire through agility across the entire business from your strategy, very important. You're designing the strategy. You're thinking agile for it, and it's not. We won't just say, "Oh, this is our 5-year strategy." We're not going to revisit it again until the next 5 years. That is not agility. By the time you design the strategy, you bake into the process. How do we want to test it? How do we want to test this as we go on? At what point do we refine, get feedback, and make it better? That is getting strategic agility. One thing, I've talked about this earlier as well too, like you're not just seeing the organization as we versus them. When that happens, people just think I'll pay attention to when it's my team, but I will delay when it's not the other team. But when you bake business agility across the business, everybody works together as one team. You have a particular goal to deliver. You pick people from different teams to come together and work together to deliver it. Now, we don't have all the time to go through all of this, but as we could see those different domains across leadership, which involves people management as well, to then operations, which involves things like structure, process, and agility across the enterprise, and individuals. Very important, as we looked at earlier, the growth mindset, ownership and accountability. In a place where there's business agility, individuals are not just waiting for instruction and reporting. There's that ownership of their work, so they can be creative. They can bring in their own ideas as well too, and craft excellence. We are not saying because we need to do things very quickly, we just do them and move on. We are working towards excellence, and that's the reason why there is continuous refining and continuous improvement as well too. So in closing, just like a take-home thoughts for us today is, why should businesses ensure business agility in designing a growth strategy? And I mean, from some of the conversation we've had today, it speaks for itself a lot. If you come up with a growth strategy that is not agile in its nature, before you know it, it's expired. It's not working. It's not getting you the results that you need to get. But when you bake in business agility in all that you do, it's not just, oh, we want to define a growth strategy now, let's be agile in this process. You can't just be agile now and then come out of that session and go back to whatever you were doing. It has to be inside of you, just like when you say excellence. If someone is excellent in everything that person will do, it brings in a touch of excellence to it. It's not going to say, oh, I'm excellent at this, but every other thing I'm just lazy at it or something. You break in excellence. If you're going to do it, whatever your hands will do, you make sure you do it with all your might. Make sure you do it with all your abilities to make sure you're getting excellent results. So it's in saying that you're having an agile growth strategy. The truth of it is that it's not just the growth strategy that is agile, it's the organization. it's the individuals that are agile for them to be able to come out with an agile growth strategy. So the next steps I'm going to recommend for this, I've just run through a lot of all this in 1 hour, and there are much more content than this. This is just a fragment of what you get from the course, the Business Agility Foundations course. And I can quickly show this, what that is about. So at this point, if you have any question, which we don't really have so much time to look through it, you might be able to drop your question as well too, and see which ones we could run through. So what I've mentioned earlier, the Business Agility Foundation course is with IC Agile. The IC Agile have different certification track in business agility. So it could, but this is like the foundation course for it, which is very essential because it gives that balanced view across the entire business. So that's the link, the same website where you got to register for the webinar. You could get in there to register for the course. And interestingly, so there is no physical limitation for this, because we have virtual sessions as well too, where we spread across maybe each session 3 hours each, and then we could have like 4 or 5 sessions to go through all that and take this more in depth, and that would be even much more interactive. Get feedback from people, get your questions, and explain all this in a more practical term in terms of your business, what you're doing, and what are the things we are looking at on the course. We're looking at introduction to business agility, laying the foundation, getting the details around it, compelling vision, focus, and clarity of purpose. I'm someone who is even very big when you're on talking about clarity of purpose. You need to be, if it's not clear, we talked about that earlier when you have your collaborative team. If you're not clear on what needs to be delivered, people will just run in different direction. People will just waste their time if the vision or if the purpose is not clear. And there are organizations today where there's a purpose statement, but not everybody understands it. So that is wrong. That is absence of employee engagement. That is losing a lot of ideas that you could capture if everybody understands what they should be working towards. So we look at that clarity of purpose, understand how to even clarify your purpose as a business as well. So we talk about enabling new ways of thinking. So how can you enable this? Because sometimes some people say, oh, okay, because some people say, oh, we've already employed some people. You said earlier that in getting growth mindset, you need to get the right people. But should we now fire everybody? No, you don't need to fire everybody that are already in the business. There are ways you can enable these new ways of thinking, the mental models, the growth mindset. It's very doable. We'll be talking through all that as well too. We also talk about value, design thinking, and lean startup, spending a lot of hours to dive deep on that. And we'll be talking also on lean systems thinking and frameworks. So how do you bring lean system thinking? And then we'll be talking about all the different agile methodologies that we mentioned briefly earlier, to say in more detail, discuss them, discuss the application. So that is the course. Enough of me talking about the course already. Just get onto the website, book now. The prices for it is still much more at a discount. So that's it from me for this evening. Do we have any questions at this point? If none, our time is pretty much gone as well too. We could get to the point of just closing the session. Over to you.
Thank you very much to all the participants who attended our webinar, and thank you very much, Dare, for this wonderful and insightful session. As Dare shared, for more information on Business Agility Foundation certification, you can drop an email on sales@izenbridge.com. Thank you very much. Good night.